Limitless Wrestling fans, it's another edition of the Limitless Wrestling Podcast coming to your ears wherever you may get your podcast, on Spotify, on Podbean, on Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else. All you gotta do is hit subscribe, hit download, leave a review, all that good stuff. Jon Alba here, joined by the czar of Limitless Wrestling, Mr. Randy Carver. Randy, what is cooking?
What's going on, man? Excited to have a fun conversation with our boy DL Hurst today.
Yes, we are going to have a conversation with our boy DL Hurst. He joins us now on this edition of the Limitless Wrestling Podcast. And it's always good to have someone hop on board as long as they are literate and articulate, which I can't say is every Limitless Wrestling fan, but alas, DL Hurst, wow. You know I'm a big fan of yours. How are you?
I've heard. I'm putting the final touches on my Alba Star Search video.
Excellent.
I know you've been looking for it, but I want to make it perfect because you're anticipating it, you know?
Yes. This is good, Randy, isn't this?
Yeah, Jon has been waiting for this ever since he dropped the challenge. He's like, I can't wait for the Dark Horse to make a video for me.
It's true.
You threw a little insult at me over Twitter when I got my certification recently about your boy Mac Daniels. I don't know.
Listen, it was out of love. I think, as I proposed, did you see this tweet, Randy?
I did not.
So he got his certification, which we'll talk about a little bit, and I was like, oh, you're catching up to Mac Daniels or something like that. But then he was like, then Hurst was like,
all I ever tried was a gif of a bridge being burned.
And I said, listen, I'm all in on this. I can find the exact tweet here because it was a good one. I said, things can be smoothed over. Here's a pitch for you. A Simon Dean-esque tag team based around personal training, except you don't suck like Simon Dean. What are your thoughts?
Wow.
So can we make that happen, Randy?
I don't know. We need to get a couple of those fucking little scooters that Simon Dean get. That was the best part of Simon
The scooters.
Dean. The scooter.
I imagine that Randy Carver was a Simon Dean fan, and that's the bigger problem here. So
if I was a Simon Dean fan, I think I'd be in much better shape.
This is true. This is true. Anyway, DL Hurst joins us here on the Limitless Wrestling Podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about his career, take some questions from you, the fans, and get into all that good stuff. So let's get down to it. It's our first time chatting with you in a while, and you've kind of been on the recovery train for the better part of the last year. First off, how are you feeling, and what has it been like trying to get back in the swing of things?
Well, currently I'm feeling great because I've only bumped a few times since the whole quarantine thing started, and that's only like falling in my kitchen. But other than that, you know, like even since the comeback of when I broke my leg a few years back, I feel great. Like I'm comfortable, like I'm coming into my own. You know, it took me a bit, you know, to get comfortable again and like get my feet under me, but I'm feeling good. Like obviously my leg still hurts. Well, both of my legs actually hurt a little bit, but you know, it happens.
That was interesting what you just said. I didn't mean to cut you off there, Randy. I want to follow up on what he just said real quick though, because he said that he feels good that he's not bumping, where I feel like we hear all the time with pro wrestling, like you got to keep your body calloused and everything, and then you become out of sorts if you're not getting those reps. So you haven't found that to be an issue so far yet?
Well, no. I've recently been able to train at an undisclosed location and taken, you know, a few bumps here and there, and it really hasn't been bad. You know, like running the ropes, obviously it's going to take, you know, you get that little bruise on your lat and your ass, but, but you know, you get used to it. You get used to it again, and luckily this time it's pretty quick. It's pretty quick getting back into it. It's just going to get the comfortability. That's going to be the tough thing for me because being off for 4 months, obviously wrestling 2-3 times a week, you get used to it, you know? Like you get used to the sense of, okay, I got to be ready for this weekend. And I haven't had to do much of that even for anything over the past 3 months.
So I want to go way back before we dive into any more, because I'm sure, like, I think a lot of people are in your shoes right now where You've had this, what you said, 4 months or so away from wrestling where you haven't taken a bump, you haven't run the ropes. It's all kind of feeling, I don't want to say new again, but it's a whole new experience when you've been out for so long. And I'm sure that you, more than some other people, have experience at this, having the injury, being out for a long extended period of time. Do you feel like the injury, in terms of like the pandemic happening now and no wrestling happening, do you feel like it kind of helped you prepare for a time frame like this, and like how to keep your mind right and what to keep doing to keep moving forward?
I never thought of it that way, but I'm sure it did. Because I was out from, I think, July 13th until my first match back was February 1st. So I didn't have a lot of preparation for anything in that time either. So, I mean, I guess it kind of kept me ready for it. But I guess it's both things weren't expected, I guess, but it's under different circumstances. At least I can walk around in this situation.
Right.
That is certainly a good thing. Well, you really have found yourself in a situation where you have been forced to reinvent yourself over the course of the past year and a half. I think back to the pairing that you had with Brett Domino and kind of being one of Anthony Green's bitches, for lack of a better term. And yet here you are.
Delete the footage of this Alba Star Search video.
No, but what I'm saying is you have kind of found yourself in a situation where you reinvented yourself and you've made a name for yourself. What has that reinvention process been like for you, especially at a young age? And how have you found success in that?
Well, to me, you have to take every opportunity for what it is, an opportunity. And I was very, very young in my career when Anthony Green, kind of took me and Brett Domino under his wing in Limitless Wrestling. And I kind of can't thank him enough for it, because it opened my eyes to not only Limitless Wrestling, because at that time, I hadn't traveled outside of Massachusetts as far as wrestling goes. So it opened my eyes to Limitless Wrestling, and it opened my eyes to, different styles and being able to be a part of a match on the outside of the ring, and just kind of coming into playing different parts as far as the wrestling business goes. I wasn't inside of the ring, besides when I got clotheslined on the floor from Ace, but it helped a lot. It helped me grow, but coming into a new character, things kind of ended abruptly with Anthony Green, because, I got hurt, and that the opportunity wasn't there anymore. And I came back because obviously he was on a different path to the top of Limitless Wrestling. But when I came back, I was going to make sure that I was still taking advantage of every opportunity that I got. Me and Brett got paired when I came back. I came back as, the big surprise. It looked like I was going to help out, the Platinum Honeys, but, I ended up choosing to side with Brett. And I thought at the time it was a smart decision, but clearly now I've chosen to go on my own, coming to my own, where, I've been around for a while now, and I've worked hard, and I've always been here, and I've always been able to provide exactly what's expected of me, and even go beyond that. And that's what I'm trying to put across now. I'm done waiting. I'm done letting everybody else cut in line ahead of me. I'm taking my spot.
Randy, you as a promoter have to face a pretty difficult challenge when you're trying to introduce new talent to your fans, and you see the promise in them, you see the talent in them, but maybe because the fans aren't familiar with them, that might be a bit more of a process. Why do you think pairing DL and Brett Domino together was something that was effective and beneficial to them?
Well, to be honest, like it was not really something that was in the game plan moving forward with Anthony Green. We knew we were going to put people with him. The names and identities of those that were going to be with him were unknown for a little while. And I think it was November of 2017, Hybrid Moments. DL, I believe, was just there to get pictures done with Harry. Is that correct?
AG kind of brought me up and kind of gave me like a, hey, there might be something. But yeah, I was just there to get pictures for Harry.
Yeah, okay, because I literally, until that day, I don't believe I had met DL Hurst in my life. AG vouched for both DL and Brett Domino very hard, as he did the previous month. And Brett had already been kind of on our radar and had like at least hit us up to see about the potential of getting future opportunities, and had been coming to help out. And they were honestly they were two guys who we tried out with AG early on, and I think they were on some pre-show matches in the months following, just to kind of get a feel for where these guys were at. And I was honest with AG from the start too. Like if this wasn't something that fit, we were going to go back on it, and we were going to kind of reevaluate the situation. But, I trusted the little that I had seen from Anthony Green in videos following, and at least to give him, hear it out, give him a shot. And as DL said, like both of them stepped up to the plate. They met the opportunity, and they were able to provide as best they could. And I thought I really loved the trio of Brett, DL, and Anthony Green. I wish it could have kept going, but AG, this was the start of his retro character. Basically, everywhere else the retrosexual was beginning. I think it was actually New Year's of 2018 when that all kicked in. So I wasn't sold on that. We talked about this with AG, a month ago. I was not sold on the retrosexual. I loved what we were doing in Limitless, and I loved the trio. And I think, if the injury hadn't happened, it probably would have continued at least to the end of the year. But obviously, shit happens, and I think for everyone involved, probably worked out for the better. You mentioned the moment with Ava Everett when you first came back, March of 2019. I loved that moment. I thought that was a really cool way to come back. He was in the pre-show against Mark Sterling as a surprise. Everyone was pulling for him. I think you'd only been back a month at that point, I believe. And then just turns around and throws it right back in their face. And I want to talk about this time frame. I would say March to about July here, where we do try out the team of you and Brett again. I think we do a couple match or two in Limitless and in Let's Wrestle, and it doesn't end up working out. How did you feel coming back into this tag team? Did you want to do something different on the return, or was it really just doing whatever was there?
It wasn't necessarily that I wanted to do something different. Obviously, like I said, an opportunity is an opportunity. But I don't feel I excel in tag teams, or at least I haven't found that I excel in tag teams much. I kind of excel more when I'm on my own and able to get across what I'm about on my own, essentially. But like I said, I took it for what it was and tried to run with it. It just didn't work out.
Why do you think that is, though, where someone has to find that confidence somewhere, right? Like, if you're in a tag team, you think of all the great tag teams, you can tell if someone is feeling it or if they're not feeling it. So what did it take for you to realize that and say, okay, I'm confident in my abilities to fly solo and excel at that?
It was essentially just experiences both in that tag team and out elsewhere on my own. You guys might not know it personally. I know, John, you've had experiences, and Randy, obviously, you have experiences through Limitless Wrestling. But at the end of a match, you either feel really good about it or you're not sure. Or, I've had the very upset feeling a few times too, but I felt coming out of the tag matches very, not sure about things. Not sure if it went well. Not sure if everything we were trying to get across got across properly. But then I would go and have a singles match elsewhere, and I'd feel great. I hit all my points. I felt I was getting across who I am and all I was about. But meanwhile, as a tag team, I was kind of, the serious guy that got shit done, while Brett was the huge character.
Yeah, it's almost, I do feel like as a unit, you guys definitely fit very well, but I can definitely feel the disconnect that you kind of feel of just maybe being unsure. I feel like sometimes the characters of you two did not mesh 100% when you were in the ring. And that's just fucking gonna happen. That's the way it goes sometimes in teams like that.
Right.
So who is DL Hurst then?
DL Hurst, I'm the dark horse, man. Like I said earlier, I've been here for a while. I always think back to like the 2007 Red Sox when, obviously they won the World Series that year, but the MVP wasn't, David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez of the season. It was Dustin Pedroia. Dustin Pedroia did everything that was asked of him and more that year, and he came out the MVP. The MVP. I might be wrong on the year, but he was the MVP of the entire American League while on the Red Sox. And he wasn't a star, but he was the dark horse of the entire thing. And that's what I am. I get exactly what I want to get done. You guys saw it recently in the pandemic at the dojo when I went up against Love Doug. I ran through him. I might have hit a wall and ripped bison, but I ran through the competition as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it was Alex Rodriguez. It was the 2007 AL MVP, but that's okay. I won't hold it against you.
I knew you were...
I won't hold it against you. Listen, you're gonna come at me with baseball.
That's good.
I'm gonna bring it back to you. But I get the point, and I like
think
that.
That's a really good analogy.
I think it's a great analogy.
Fuck, I wouldn't have even really compared the two, but now hearing that, it makes a ton of sense.
Well, it's kind of like you hear AJ Styles talk about all the time, that Pitbull character, right? There's a little bite to it. It's not something that is just given to you. You have to take what you earn, and you have to earn what you take. And I think that is pretty representative of who you have become here. You're someone who takes advantage of opportunities, like in the Vacationland Cup.
Yep.
And Randy, I know that was something that was really important to you because you were in a bind. The 2019 Vacationland Cup was just a disaster at all levels in the week leading up to it.
Yeah.
Everything was changing.
That was one of the worst weeks of my life for sure. But in the end, I think it's one of the most meaningful shows in Limitless Wrestling history. I think a lot of people had some of the best matches in their Limitless careers on that night. And just a few days before, Big Bacon Brad Hollister goes down with an injury that puts him out for quite some time. He's obviously unable to wrestle Ace Romero in the first round. And DL Hurst was first on the call, as suggested once again by Anthony Green. And DL was able to make, I remember he had to move some shit around, but he made it work and was able to get there. And I think, to be honest, had a really a match that made him to the Limitless Wrestling fans, because the direction, especially since the comeback, was a weird one. Because I mean, we had the match with Mark Sterling, then the scuffle with Ava Everett. We weren't able to have the tag team match that we wanted to at Limitless Wrestling, which was DL and Brett versus AG and Evie, and we were able to have that at Let's Wrestle, luckily. But I feel like it just kind of threw your direction off a little bit. And we had talked, and I think we were, planning to kind of start fresh with everything. No more tag teams, and this was the way to do it. I mean, what a way to do it against Ace Romero on short notice, and having a damn good match with him. How did you feel, I guess, getting the news? How did you feel going into that match, and what are your thoughts coming out of it?
So I'll tell from start to finish, I guess, because my style, I don't know, it's crazy. I was at the Beyond show that Brad got hurt at. It was weird. It was a weird feeling, seeing someone get hurt, because Brad is actually the person that I landed on when I broke my leg.
No shit.
I was Brett against him and his partner Hammer Tunis, and obviously I broke my leg, and he was very, very adamant about getting in touch with me while I was hurt. He wanted to make sure I was recovering okay and everything. And then months later, I'm at a show and he gets hurt. And obviously I'm the same way, on top of him, hey, everything okay? Is there anything I can do? But I don't know. I think it was as the show ended, I checked my phone and there was a message from you saying, hey, I heard what happened with Brad. Is there any way you can, take his spot and go up against Ace? And in my head, I had a big dilemma going through my head. You might have heard it. I know Brad has told the story a few times on a podcast or two, but I didn't take it immediately. I saw the message from you. I kind of read it, thought about it, texted a few people, but I messaged Brad, and I made sure it was okay with him because obviously he can't do anything about it. He's hurt and everything, but I don't want to be in my head at the time. I did not want to be the person that took his spot if he was going to hold any grudge against me for it, because he earned that spot. There's a reason he was in that spot to begin with, and I didn't want to be the person that replaced him, even though it was taken away from him. So I had to message him and make sure it was okay. And he kind of just said, F you, go right ahead. I don't know why you wouldn't, but even to this day, he holds me in very high regard for even contacting him about it. So I know I did the right thing in asking him. And as you said, I moved a few things around, but I made it happen because I wasn't going to miss an opportunity at the Vacationland Cup. I wasn't going to miss an opportunity to wrestle in front of the Limitless fans and, kind of reestablish who I was. And that's exactly what I planned going into it. Now, fast forward to the day of, I got there. I was excited, nervous, didn't know exactly what was going to happen. But, I mean, I've watched the match back many times. I think I got exactly what I wanted to get across, and the Limitless fans definitely appreciated it. And I don't know. I've thanked you a million times over, I believe, Randy, already, but thank you for having that faith in me. I know that week leading up to it was hell, but having the faith in me for that spot and being able to deliver, I just really appreciate it.
You don't have to thank me. You made my life 20 times easier. And the thing about it too is Vacationland Cup is kind of one of our big events of the year. And I hoped and I felt confident, but I honestly, up to that point, I feel like you hadn't really had your breakout performance, and I had seen you have very fucking good matches. But I feel like that night was your breakout performance, and it really opened not only to me, but I think to the fans, opened everybody up to just showing them how much you can do and how versatile you can really be.
Right.
That was the moment that I said, okay, this guy's a player. And I think that's important. And then you get a chance to build off it. You get some good reps in Let's Wrestle as well, where maybe you move a little higher up the card. And all in all, I think you're building a name for yourself in Limitless. What are your goals right now in Limitless?
Limitless Wrestling? I think I made it obvious in the pandemic at the dojo. I want that Limitless Wrestling World Championship.
What would it mean for you to have to go through your old mentor?
Me and AG have become pretty close over the past, however many years I've been involved in wrestling now. He's given me a lot of opportunities, obviously, including bringing me to Limitless, getting my name out there, other places as well. He brought me up to Maine, and Randy, you were there. I got to wrestle AG in Maine, in one of my first shows that I got a singles match up there, and it went tremendous. And I think that really, really confirmed the faith that he had in me to a point. And, being able to, have an opportunity to go up against him for the Limitless Wrestling World Championship would mean a lot. But being able to kind of not necessarily pass the torch or whatever it may be, but be able to be the torch bearer for a company like Limitless Wrestling would be huge. And having AG to not necessarily go through, but, propel me to that spot would mean the world.
You got your new flag bearer there, Randy. He says he
Hey.
wants the ball and he's going to score. Hopefully he doesn't become Matt Hasselbeck.
I definitely think DL's in the long-term plans for both Limitless Wrestling and Let's Wrestle moving forward. And I could honestly see him, and I don't mean to compare the two with them being so close, but I could honestly see him having a similar trajectory to Anthony Green, being someone who kind of popped onto the scene of Limitless Wrestling unannounced and really unknown, and kind of makes themselves into a fan favorite. Not only that, but a star for the promotion. I think we'll be seeing a lot of DL moving forward for sure.
And you can see a lot of DL in the gym these days too, because you tweeted it out recently. You got your personal training certification. How did that come about? Why was that something that you wanted to do? And how does that feel, being able to make a positive impact on others?
So, I mean, the process of going through with it was pretty tough, actually. So I've never been one that's good at school. I graduated high school, pretty good grades. But once it became an option, my mind kind of was like, hey, you don't need to do this. You could go work and earn money and, kind of go at it the hard way, as opposed to, going to college, which to me, honestly, going to college would have been the hard way. But I kind of landed myself in a good job, not going to college and everything. But fast forward to recently, I signed up. I was working at a bank, and I got not necessarily sick of it, but I knew I needed a change if I was going to put more effort into wrestling. It takes a lot of effort. If you're going to go full force into wrestling, it takes a lot of effort, time, and everything. So I needed that change. So I got a job at a gym. And it kind of opened my eyes to a lot of options as far as working at a gym goes. Opening a gym, you're the first person that most people see during their day. I get there at 4:30 in the morning. Everyone comes in like a zombie. Hey, how's it going? But I'm somehow able to be really excited and everything in the morning, even though it's 4:30 in the morning. And they love that. And the coaches at my gym saw that. So they wanted to, kind of push me to get my certification. So I signed up. And over the last few months, I've been studying and, putting my effort towards it. But I haven't been able to truly focus because, I don't know, throughout my life, it's just been a trouble of mine. But last Tuesday, I went into the exam, kind of confident, kind of, I can always retake the test or whatever else, but I went in, passed it on the first try, and, here I am. And now I have a job lined up. So I'm training, and when everything opens up, I should be, full-time making, personal trainer money, which, isn't that great, but it's more than I make now. So
why do you want to help people become better?
Oh, it's great. The satisfaction of being able to help people with anything. I've worked in customer service most of my adult life, and being able to find solutions to problems is always very satisfying for me. I know it's been told to me in training and all that other stuff, but if you can have someone leave the conversation with you better than they came in, it's a positive. And that's kind of how I live with it. But being able to better people in a very different way, being a personal trainer, is going to be beneficial, because not only is it, a service that everybody might need, but it's very, the results are visible, as opposed to, a smile and then you leave and somebody else makes you mad. Now you'll be able to see someone getting healthier, getting fitter, and, benefiting all around, because you're going to experience less stress, less pretty much everything negative in your life if you're healthier and just in general.
Well, one way you can help us out here today on the Limitless Wrestling Podcast is by answering some fan questions. Are you feeling up to it?
Oh, of course I am.
Okay.
I love wrestling fans.
Well, this one I've been excited to ask you about, because I cannot believe the content that Limitless Wrestling is putting out right now. Jeremy would like to know, would you ever enter Danger Kid's kitchen for a cook-off? Because if you missed it this week, he and Rip Bison did a meatball cook-off. DK cooked Gushers meatballs.
Ooh.
And Rip Bison, I believe, Randy, if I'm not mistaken, used thumbtacks.
Yeah, that's correct. Definitely out of the ordinary for Rip Bison. But, I mean, the Gusher meatball was kind of a hit for those that tried it.
It looked like bread to me. So, Jeremy wants to know, would you ever enter into the dojo for a kickoff?
Oh,
for
of
a
course.
cook-off?
Of course. I make a mean burger. So
Burger, okay.
Maybe that'll be one thing we can put together.
Okay.
What would be on your ideal burger?
Oh, I'm not letting you know.
Well, it's all about the execution. It's not so much about the...
Very true. Very true. 1 minute on high on one side, flip it. 1 minute on high on that side. Let it simmer on medium for about 2 minutes on each side after that. But I'm not letting you know what I'm putting in it.
Okay, but you are seasoning it, correct?
All right. You got to tune in for that.
You are going to season it?
Maybe not.
Oh,
Jonathan Alba.
Jesus. Oh, my... What is wrong with...
I enjoy using your full name, Jonathan.
How do you even know that that's my full name?
What else would it be? Jonifer?
My full name is the Emmy Award-winning Jon Alba.
Ah, got it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's birth certificate right there, I'm sure.
It certainly is. Randy, do you think DL would have what it takes to take down DK in the kitchen?
Yeah, it depends on who the judges are, but if they're not fucking lunatics, I'm sure that many people will not vote for the Gusher meatball. But I guess with the opposition it had, maybe it won. But I don't know. I think DL could cook a better burger. I think that's for sure.
Yeah, baby.
One thing you may not know about me is that I love cooking, and I would anxiously await that opportunity to take on DK. And
Nobody wants to eat a burger with an Emmy Award in it.
Well, no,
Yeah.
No one does.
Disgusting.
That. No. See,
Or
I
hair
like
products.
like a sane human. I season my food. I make sure it's clean. I don't put thumbtacks in it. So, whatever.
And that's a plus.
It is a plus. Anyway, you should go check that out on Limitless Wrestling's social media channels because Danger Kid is crazy. And so are you. Because I'm going to ask you this question. This is coming from me.
Boy.
What is the craziest bump you've taken in a pro wrestling match?
Besides getting hurt?
But, like, obviously you got hurt, like, gnarly. But I mean, like, one that you were able to walk away from and be like, whoa. How did I survive that?
So I haven't really got, I mean, you always have the opportunity to take a crazy bump. You can do whatever you want in wrestling, really. But nothing, like, pops into my head right away. But one of my first shows as a part of AG's group, you know, I think it was the street fight between AG and JT,
Yes.
I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When Ace came out at the end of the match and he clotheslined me and Brett to the ground, and, you know, I just went into it, hey, I'm going to take a clothesline. But it ended up, I took a high bump on hardwood.
Yeah.
It was not great.
I bet that wasn't great. I had another answer for you that's like it's not really a bump as much as it is a moment, but how about you catching that fucking falling cage with a broken leg?
Oh, yeah, baby. That was
that's
great.
the
Like,
scariest one
oh
for
man,
both.
I had broken my leg less than 2 weeks ago, like when this happened, because I still had the soft cast on. And I was sitting front row, you know, talking trash, whatever the hell. And in my head, I was like a good distance away from the action, so I could be myself, but, you know, not be in too much danger, you know, not have somebody hit me by accident, anything bad happen. Lo and behold, I happened to be right on the side that the cage fell, and I see it coming. I see them in front of me, and I kind of just instinctively was like, nope, I'm not going to let this hit my leg. So I stuck my hand up and, you know, just grabbed the top of the cage. And it was, I don't know, it was just perfect timing, I guess, where, you know, Ace was there, Quinn was there, AG was there, and it just, I put just enough grip or strength or whatever into it where it just stuck right on my hand. And I was just like, I can breathe again.
It is one of the more surreal moments in Limitless Wrestling history, that is for sure, and you were part of it. Alexis wants to know, this is a talk about questions. Here's a grilling right here, okay? In journalism, we don't ask talk about questions, because saying talk about is not a question. It is a statement. So I will rephrase this so to save Alexis's reputation here. What are your best and worst wrestling road trip experiences?
Best and worst road trip wrestling experiences. I don't think I've had a bad one. At least nothing that pops into my head. One of, if not the best road trip wrestling experience was I went up to Canada with Puff and Kevin Blackwood. And I drove from a Beyond Wrestling show to Buffalo to meet up with them. And then we rode up to Barrie, Ontario. And on the way there, I got to, I was in the passenger seat and I got to, DJ and put on some songs. And we got to listen to a little bit of Daughtry. It was great.
I forgot how much of a Daughtry fan you are.
Big Daughtry fan.
Where did that start?
So my mom's just, when I was younger, when Daughtry was the big thing, that's all my mom listened to. So I was kind of forced to listen to it. And that's how I've been growing up. If I don't like a certain type of music or a certain artist or whatever, if you play it enough, I will start to enjoy it because I start to learn the words and I appreciate music. So another example of that is my little brother was super into country music and he would just play it all day. So eventually I started to enjoy it and now I listen to it almost on a daily basis.
That's amazing. I had no idea. I wouldn't have guessed either. I'm a big country music fan. Oh,
it's great. I went to, I think it was 2018. I went to 4 country concerts. It was great.
Oh, hell yeah. They're a wild experience.
Tailgating at one is even, it's better than the concert.
That's living the full experience.
It is.
Riding with Puff must be an experience as well.
Oh, it's fantastic. We went to Toys R Us. We just told stories and everything. I got to know them real well on that trip, and I appreciate them for allowing me to come into that trip because they kind of them and Daniel Garcia kind of put my name out there to come up to that area with them. They put a lot of faith in my name, and I feel like I kind of helped out with that because I went up there and wrestled Mark Wheeler. And he's another guy that's, very impressive. I'd never met him before that, meeting him at the show. And he was exactly what I should have expected out of, someone that I was going to wrestle. He was good.
Alex asks, how do you feel the performance art side of pro wrestling will have changed in 5 years?
In 5 years,
Well, think how different it is from even 5 years ago. 5 years ago, any of these cinematic matches would have looked heinous. It would have been heinous. We hadn't seen the final deletion yet or any of that stuff.
That's true. So, I don't know. And I hope a lot of promotions lean towards this. But recently, I've seen a lot of wrestling matches where the camera quality is that of a movie. One of the matches, I forget what promotion it was, but one of the matches on the Black Lives Matter stream that was on last week on IWTV, the camera quality and just that and Defy Wrestling, I believe it's out in Seattle, all of their matches and how the camera is moving and how the different angles they get and the lighting, it looks like they're filming a movie. And watching those matches, it just comes across as this big deal. Even if it's not, it just comes across as so much bigger when you're watching it back, I feel like. Just because of the camera quality. So maybe it starts leaning that way or maybe it starts leaning towards somewhere else. But all I can say is it's going to change a lot, just like it has in the past 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years.
Well, Limitless Wrestling tried to do a cinematic match between Zach Byrne and Eric Johnson, but the problem was Eric Greenleaf got in the way.
Oh, boy.
So,
Always.
gotta live the gimmick, man. Tony asks, what was the hardest ring rust to knock off when coming back from your injury?
Comfortability. Sorry about answering that really quickly. But comfortability, getting a sense of ring awareness back, and just confidence, because I'd been out for, I don't know, I think it was like 6 or 7 months, whatever it may have been. And, I wasn't too sure of myself, I was on an upward trajectory when the injury happened, but it wasn't exactly where I wanted to be. I still had more work to do. I still had some climbing to do to where I wanted to be at that point, and suddenly it was cut short. So going back and having to reestablish my comfortability, my getting my feet under me, that was definitely the most difficult, because that's the most difficult part, I think, when you start wrestling.
Now, I got one for you here from Ethan Scott, ring announcer.
Okay.
And I want you to be careful with how you answer this, because whenever this kind of thing is usually approached on this podcast, these people end up showing up in Limitless Wrestling. Name a random wrestler you've always been a fan of, because Randy would always talk about Trevor Murdoch. He shows up. I'd talk about Gangrel. He shows up. So who's a random wrestler you've always been a fan of?
Well, I think Randy knows where I'm going about this, because I tweeted about him. I think it was last night. And
hell yeah.
To it. But if this person was ever to show up in a Limitless Wrestling show and I wasn't wrestling them, I would be visibly sad. Not upset, not mad, visibly sad. I'd be bawling. Shelton Benjamin.
Okay.
So, in 2004, when he was drafted to Raw, instantly a huge fan, because they did it right. They brought him in. They brought him in as an underdog, and he beat the top guy on Raw. He beat Triple H. I was instantly behind him. Fast forward a few months, they bring him in as they put him in a match against Randy Orton, and he wins the Intercontinental Championship, and he holds it for over a year. Or if not, almost a year. I apologize if I got the dates wrong. But the end, and I haven't told many people about this, but the end of that title reign, that title reign came when Carlito debuted from SmackDown to Raw. And he came in, it might have been the draft or a trade or whatever, but he beat Shelton Benjamin, and I sobbed. I'm not kidding. I sobbed. I was like, I forget how old I was. I think it was, I don't know, 12 or 13, however old I was. But I was sobbing because a fictional character in the WWE lost a title.
It happens.
For my money, Shelton Benjamin will go down as one of the biggest missed opportunities in pro wrestling history.
Insane.
Yeah, 100%. There was a point where he was almost on a Limitless show. This would have been the year before he got re-signed.
Tell us that story.
It was probably 6 months before that.
Mm-hmm. Tell us that story.
It's not a huge story with it. I mean, I saw that there were two people who I knew who were wrestling on a show with Shelton Benjamin in New York. So one of them got his information for me, exchanged an email or two with his agent, and it was literally just a problem with dates. He was only accepting bookings for another 2 months at that point, which kind of gave you an idea that something was up. But we only had 2 events in that time frame, and neither of them were going to match up with his schedule.
Yeah,
unfortunately, so
that stinks. But I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility of happening one day.
Man,
I don't think so either. It all depends on obviously what happens with him. I'd love him to have a job for life, but
of course.
Never know. If he were back on the independents again, it's surely someone who I'd try to get for something. If not wrestling a match, maybe an appearance in a seminar with the students, but something. I mean, he's been a low-key favorite of mine. He's in that Trevor Murdoch category of legitimately being probably someone in my top 5 or 10, and it's just like a random guy to some people, but he's an incredible athlete. I think him and Charlie Haas are one of the best tag teams of that decade.
For real.
Oh, easily.
And he still got it.
Absolutely.
Got it.
He's untouchable.
He does still have it. He had a great theme song that they took away, unfortunately.
Oh my God, yeah. Even Mama Benjamin, that was funny.
Of course you thought it was funny. I have
Why not?
no
It's Shelton
doubt.
Benjamin. I'm going to push for it.
I have no doubt you were all in on Mama Benjamin. I have no doubt about that.
That was like right around when I first started watching.
Of course it was.
So I was into it.
And it was like they had like a brick in the purse, right?
Yeah, it was all for heat, and it was the demasculation of Shelton Benjamin after this badass run that he had, and of course Randy was on board with that, no doubt.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about Heidenreich,
Wow.
Randy? Were you a big Heidenreich fan too?
I hated Heidenreich.
Okay.
No, fuck Heidenreich.
Who else? Some of your favorites from that era, DL?
So growing up, I was super into Stone Cold, Jeff Hardy, The Rock, but looking back, like now, I look back at certain wrestlers and I'm like, wow, they were really, really good. Like I look back at JBL's title run, and yeah, it's heel perfection. Like obviously, it started off with the matches with Eddie, but even after that, he just played it perfectly. He was, when he needed to, he was that tough son of a bee. But like at first, he was also like a chicken shit heel, even though he was 6'5", almost 300 pounds.
Yep, he had the cabinet with him. Like there was every ounce of heat that he could possibly get, he was striving to get, and that's like something that I feel like in that era, even in today, like doesn't happen a ton. So you have to kind of appreciate the talents who are kind of willing to take the next step, even if it's sometimes it's a misstep, but you don't know unless you try, I suppose.
Of course, and I'd be upset with myself if I didn't mention this, but also Edge. Opportunist, all that stuff, but like the rated R stuff, even Edge and Christian, him coming back this year.
Next thing you know, the Basham brothers are going to be showing up in Limitless Wrestling all of a sudden.
I don't need the Basham brothers. Like, I don't think they're going to be wrestling the Mainstay Posse or something.
Did they have the greatest?
No shade to the Bashams, but I don't know what they're doing recently.
Did they have the greatest wrestling match ever, in your guys' opinion?
I'll be honest, I've yet to watch.
Hurst?
Wait. So for a second, I didn't know what you were talking about.
I was not talking about the Bashams.
Right. No, that's where I thought you were going, and I was like, I've watched some of it, and it was good, but I'd have to finish watching it because I've heard very good things about it.
I felt like pulling a Conrad Thompson there for a second and saying, Randy, what's your favorite Basham Brothers match of all time?
The last one.
Oh, boy. We got our last question here coming to you from Dylan Nix of the Dojo.
Mm-hmm.
When wrestling returns, what fresh faces on the Limitless or Let's Wrestle roster would you like to face?
To be honest, everybody. Being at the Pandemic at the Dojo, a lot of people impressed me. A lot of the students of the dojo and a lot of the people coming into Limitless Wrestling lately have been nothing but impressive. I've been able to wrestle, like, I know Warhorse has been in Limitless a couple times. He's got a lot of steam behind him, but I've been able to wrestle him, once and be around him and just like kind of learn a lot about him. And I would love to face him in Limitless on that stage. And Manders, he's a huge person I'd like to wrestle because I haven't touched on it yet, but before all this happened, like, I don't know, a month or so before, I went over to AIW to, go take part in one of their tryouts. And I ended up being on the main show, and a lot of it was because of the push from some of the wrestlers in the back. Some of the wrestlers that had wrestled over here and, seen me wrestle and heard my name and all that stuff. Manders is one of the big pushers. Him, Dominic Rini, they helped me in that spot, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot.
Randy, any opponents that you would love to see him go toe-to-toe?
I'm actually really curious about this too.
Immediately coming to mind is Daniel Garcia for
Hell yeah.
Limitless. I was thinking that before, everything got shut down. That was one in the back of my head that I'd like to see soon. I'd love to see a rematch with Alec Price on the Limitless stage instead of Let's Wrestle. Mm-hmm. I think with more time letting you guys loose, I think it would be a very fun collision. Looking at Let's Wrestle, I'd love to see you wrestle one of our students, Dave Dyer. I feel like it could
Can you
be
kick his ass,
a pretty
please?
big learning experience for the old Belfast Bulldog.
Can you just humiliate him, please?
Oh boy. Maybe
God
John,
loves him, some
maybe
Dave
that's
Dyer.
the first match you're my manager. Huh?
Maybe. Listen.
And how could I forget DL and Mac Daniels?
Oh, there it is.
I really think you and Mac Daniels would tear it down.
Of course we would.
And again, I think you would find some mutual respect for one another.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the opportunities would be endless.
I feel you.
Just
I'm right there
saying.
with you.
Okay. Hear that, Randy?
Pick a winner, John.
Well, listen, with all due respect, you know the answer here. You know who it is.
God.
Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
He is DL
Surprised he didn't
Hurst.
have his music lined up.
If you really, I mean, that is not something that is hard for me to do here, Randy.
No, we're good on
It's
music
not.
this week.
You sure? Because I have it ready to go right now.
I'm sure you do.
I literally have it ready to go. But he is DL Hurst. He joined us here on the Limitless Wrestling Podcast this week. DL, where can people find you on social?
On Instagram and Twitter, it is DL_wrestles because, I wrestle. And on Facebook, it's DL Hurst. I think there's 2 periods in between the DL or whatever. Yeah, follow me, add me. I'll talk to you.
That's quite the pitch right there. I'll
Good.
talk to
I'm
you.
an entertaining person. I like talking to people.
You are an entertaining person. Randy, anything else you want to add here?
Well, John,
No,
you
I
really
think
like
that's
me.
good. Enjoyed having you for a conversation. We should not wait as long as we did last time to have you again.
Yes, please. I'd love to do. I know you're doing watch-alongs lately, but I'd love to be able to do a watch-along or 2 with you guys, with the Ace match, with maybe one of the matches I was involved with AG with, something like that. It'd be fun.
Let's do it. Maybe we could get AG on as well and kind of do a couple matches, talk about the evolution of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love it. I think the fans would love it, and we loved having you here on the Limitless Wrestling Podcast. And because Randy asked so kindly, don't forget, check out everything on Limitless Wrestling social media. Danger Kid, he's in the kitchen. And well, here's the real star.
And Jonathan is not.
Enough of this.